Hello everyone! My name is Tracy and welcome back to my channel. If you clicked on this video, then most likely you're also thinking about quitting your job, or perhaps you have already quit your job and is taking a break like I did. And it's raining. So in this video, I'm going to share with you the emotional aspect about quitting your job to take a break. Unlike my other videos, I won't be doing this alone. Today, I brought a friend with me. Say hi to Kian.
Hi.
Oh, yeah, you have the mic. Kian and I have quit our jobs and are currently taking a break from work. So we'll be sharing with you the emotional struggles that you might face after quitting.
So some of the points that you hear today might be what you expected, but some of them might be quite surprising, or at least they were to us.
If you're here for research before quitting, welcome! And if you're here because you've already quitted and are struggling, we hope this video helps you feel that you're not alone in this. Before we begin, let's introduce ourselves. Let's start with our guest today. So Kian, tell us more about yourself.
Okay, so I'm Kian from the Kian 1675 channel and the Comfort Table channel. I've quitted my previous job for like 11 months now. And I was working in a firm in the building industry. I did architecture before that, so I took a break because I realized that the building industry wasn't really for me and I wanted time to find out what I was going to do. So it's kind of like an adult year, a fun employment year, a gap year, whatever you want to call it. There's quite a few names for it.
Actually, Kian and I are from the same company and I also study architecture. And I've been working for about 5 years already. And I just quit about 2 to 3 months ago. Yeah. I just realized that it wasn't for me because nearing the end of my career, I realized that every day I was just dreading work. And because of the workload, I was also quite burnt out. And I just wonder, is that how I really want to live my life for the next 20 to 30 years? So once I asked myself this question, I realized my answer is no. I don't really want to stay in this company for so long, or even in this industry. So that is why I sort of made up my mind that I should quit, take a break, and sort of to rediscover myself during this period of time. This video is about the emotional struggles that we both faced after we quit our jobs and take this break. When we first quit our jobs, there was this very liberating feeling.
I think for both of us, it's something that we wanted to do for a while. It's something that we planned for to be able to do. And when we actually, got the finances together, got the courage to do it, got the right timing and stuff like that to do it, it was very freeing to finally be able to do it. But the happy feeling doesn't last. It's kind of like a high. You get off it quite fast afterwards. And that's why we wanted to make this video, to share with you some of the emotional struggles that we ourselves went through after the initial high. So it's not bad, it's not good. I think it's just like something that you want to know about if you do plan on quitting like we did.
So let's dive into the emotional struggles that you might be facing after you quit your job. So the first emotion you may feel is, you may not feel happy at all. In fact, you may actually feel useless. In the beginning, after you resign and submitted your letter and everything, of course, there will be that very happy feeling. But the real unhappiness comes after you officially quit your job and no longer need to go to work.
When you actually face the reality of not having to work, when you actually have the free time and you're not just fantasizing about the free time, you start to realize that the reality of what you imagine is actually a bit different. You're not perpetually happy. In fact, because you have been working, you might just feel very lost now that you don't have something to kind of do during your day. You don't have this task that you need to complete, and then you might feel very unsure of how you're feeling. And I think, Tracy, you've mentioned that especially because I think you quit when you were at the peak of feeling burnt out, you actually experienced this very negatively.
Yes, correct. So for me, the unhappiness, came because previously I was burnt out, dreading work. So I already have this very negative mindset that, wow, I really don't like my job, I hate my job, and all this. So this negative mindset actually continued with me until after I quit my job, because I start labeling myself as things like, oh, I'm jobless, I'm unemployed, I am wasting my time, because like what you said, right, we have a lot of free time now, don't know what to do with it. Instead of feeling happy that we have a lot of free time, yeah, it suddenly feels like, am I wasting time? What's happening? Then this jobless woman here, yeah, like should be doing work and earning money, you see. So that's why I think this unhappiness really start to settle in, and is something that we need to deal with, lah. Yeah.
I think like along that same line of thinking, right, a lot of it has to do with like our idea of self-worth, our idea of like value, because a lot of us are working in this kind of like I guess sort of capitalist, not sort of like, is capitalist society, right? And a lot of us, at least around our friends, we place a lot of value on productivity, on like being, doing stuff, being productive and all that, right? When you suddenly don't work, it suddenly feels like you don't really have that much value as a human being, which is not true, by the way. But you sort of unfortunately feel that because of like the surroundings and upbringing that you carry with you. And then if you already have a negative mindset of like, oh, I'm jobless, I'm unemployed. I think for me the funny part came when my brother had to fill in a form, like listing like everybody's jobs. And then he turned to me and then he was like, hey sis, you're a NEET, like not employed or undergoing training or something. I forgot what it stands for, but basically you're not under education, not under training, not employed, right? And then I was like, holy crap. I was like, oh no, I'm now this useless thing in society, which is like, it's not entirely true, it's also not entirely false, but I think it's kind of like the perception that you have. And the common perception is that if you're not working, you're kind of like, not useful, then like, why are you like here? And that can really affect you negatively.
So I guess this part also sort of brings us to the second emotion, which is that you could also be feeling very restless as well. Because just now I think we mentioned that we constantly feel that we need to be productive, and then if we are not productive, then we are wasting our time. There's always this dilemma that's happening, right? Like, especially for me, that time when I was resting, I felt that I need to be productive and do work. I need to start looking for the next job. But when I start doing that, then I was like, actually I should be resting. I took this break to rest. So it's like rest also feel stress, not resting also feel stress. So there's this constant dilemma happening, which made me feel very restless, lah. I don't know, do you have this same feeling as well when you quit your job?
Yeah, I think like there's a bit of an expectation when I first quit, right, that I would spend my time doing things that I really enjoy, or like I will spend my time like doing nothing at all, or like doing whatever I want. And like it was so difficult to like not do anything, because I think the mindset of like not doing anything means you're useless is so entrenched in like a lot of us. And then I realized that I don't know how to rest. Yeah, I don't know how to stop working and just rest. I think it's a very common problem that a lot of us have. And then not knowing how to rest, I think my mind starts to wander into places of like, how do I do things that are restful, which is like not quite rest. And then when I'm actually like doing things like making YouTube videos or like taking photos of my dolls and like doing my hobbies and stuff, I also like, I'm technically productive, but at the same time I also feel a bit like, am I kind of like being productive in the wrong areas? Like, am I doing like useless things and just like trying to like stroke my own ego and feel like I'm being productive, but this thing is like objectively, not important, like leading nowhere. So I think there is a lot of this like sense of like restlessness that goes between like trying to be productive, trying to rest, and then you're just like neither here nor there.
So the third emotion that you may be feeling is that you may feel disappointed. Okay, so just now we mentioned, right, during this gap year, there's a lot of things that we actually want to do, and maybe you as well, who's planning to quit and take a break like us, there might be a lot of things that you actually really want to like achieve during this break. But then you realize that when you have all the free time, you actually don't really want to do it, or you end up not doing it somehow. Yeah, so for me, for example, right, I've always wanted to play my guitar, and I always blame it on like, oh, I don't have enough time to play my guitar. So that's why the time after I quit, I thought that, okay, every day I want to play my guitar, like for at least 1 hour or something. But then in the end, I just don't find the motivation to actually play it. So I'm not sure why. Maybe actually I'm not that passionate about it after all. I'm not too sure. Yeah, but in the end, it's just like I'm disappointed in myself in a way that like I didn't really achieve what I set out to achieve during my break.
I think for me, it's like somewhat similar. I also had like a list of things that I really wanted to do when I quit my job, things that I thought like I would definitely do just, because I finally have the free time to do it. A lot of it is hobby related, but just like Tracy, I think a lot of it, when you actually have the time, you realize sometimes you just don't feel like doing it, and like it takes a bit of I guess self-reflection, or like really like trying to figure out what you feel, right? To realize that maybe sometimes it's not just about the time, it's maybe also about your energy levels. I think for a lot of us who quit, you also maybe quit because you really need that time to heal yourself. And if you just immediately go into your next hobby, you might, feel like you are actually just transferring the same energy over. In between, you might feel like, quite disappointed with yourself. Like, why am I not achieving all these things? Why is my like ideal quitting life like, not as great as I imagined? Because I think there is a bit of a disconnect between the ideal, like, this is what I will be like when I quit, and then the actual reality of like what you are actually like when you quit. So like, I think as with real life, there's a lot of like positives and negatives. And maybe some of us, especially the people like us who do quit, have a very rosy picture of what our lives will be like. So I think like it kind of does set us up for a bit of disappointment that you have to like learn to work through, to really be like, yeah, maybe it's fine that like I didn't, play my guitar today, or I didn't sit down and like edit a video today. So for me at the start, I was like, I need to make like 1 YouTube video per week for my doll channel. And then at some point it kind of just became like, felt like work, and then I felt weird about it. Yeah, I think there is a bit of that. So if you can just kind of like let go of that disappointment, I think that really helps a lot with like your mindset through this whole like break year.
Yeah, I think just now we talked about us having this very rosy picture about quitting our jobs, right? And this kind of expectation that we hope that we can achieve. So I guess another expectation that we both thought about, or at least for me definitely, is that we will have more time to spend with family and friends. Yeah, but actually that's not quite true. So I guess this leads to the next emotion that you might be feeling, which is you may feel quite alone, physically and mentally. So what do we mean by that? Physically, basically, it's like, yeah, you thought that you have more time, right? Now you have, all the time to spend with your friends and family, which previously you couldn't do so. But then you realize that, wait a minute, you're the only one who's free, right? Like, we are the only ones who quit our jobs and are free. Yeah, but our friends and family themselves, they may not have time for us.
So I thought I had a more practical view. So I was like, since I'm free, right, I'll go to my friends. But then the reality of it is like they can probably only spare the same time that they've always spared, which is like weekday dinners or like some meal times during weekends. And in the end, it's kind of like, it still amounts to a similar amount of time that you can hang out with your friends because they still have their usual jobs. And then with your family, it's also similar, especially if they're still working. And then even if they're not working, which my parents are not, they have their regular like household chores, their walks every day. It's like, unless you do stuff with them, like their usual stuff, you probably won't really have that much time to like interact with them. I think like that's the physical aspect of it, right? For me, I felt a lot of it was like I felt very alone emotionally. I think part of it is also maybe because I quit before you did. So when Tracy quit, like after a while she realized that I had very similar struggles and we could talk about them. I think at the start when I quit, I didn't really know anyone who did something similar. So it was like quite difficult for me to find somebody that I can explain this to, because I think like a lot of people who have not quit before, who have not actually experienced this before, tend to either have a very rosy picture of like what our life currently looks like, or they might have a very negative view of like, why are you wasting your time? Why are you wasting your life away, like not doing anything? So it becomes very difficult to either justify that, you are not being wasteful, you're actually still of value as a human being, or to kind of like explain to them why you are still emotionally or like physically struggling with this period, even though you have a lot more time than your friends who are still working, how it's like not all great. And I think it's like much easier now that we both have this experience. We can kind of just like talk to each other. And you might find a similar issue if you're also like one of the few people who just quit. But I guess there is a hope that like people will just get you, but it's not really that simple. Yeah.
Kian is right lah. I'm quite lucky that, lucky lah in a way, that she actually quit before me. So in a way, during my quitting process, I did contact her to ask her for some advice. But I also understand that there's not a lot of us who have this opportunity for someone who has almost a similar situation as you to consult, which is also why we start this channel, this video and channel in a sense to talk about this. Yeah, so emotionally I was also quite alone because my family, they don't quite support my decision to quit. I guess parents they have very traditional mindset that if you have a proper job that's paying you very well, why are you quitting? So I guess it's quite hard to find people who understand, and even if people who understood or support you, because they never go through this themselves, so it's quite hard to talk to them about your issues also. Yeah, so I guess that's why there's that emotional loneliness and a bit of that emptiness also when you quit your job. Yeah.
So not to be like all negative, I think there is a bit of an upside to this. So I think the upside to this, especially if you're somebody that does a lot of self-reflection, and actually what you might need is just like more time to think, which is what I felt like I need, right? Because I didn't really get that kind of time while I was working. While I felt emotionally alone, but I could do things like journal, I could look at like online, there's a lot of like other people on YouTube who have done like adult gap years, breaks, fun employment and all this, right? So searching for the experiences and like reflecting on like how I feel about it. Yeah, so I think that's something that is like, I mean, it's a struggle that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, I think.
Okay, the next emotion that you may feel is that you worry a lot. During the break, right, you have a lot of free time to think, so naturally you start to worry. And I think the very first thing that all of us worry about is finance. Because for both of us, when we quit, we did have quite a lot of savings. That's why we have the confidence to take a break. And we are not exactly working right now, don't have part-time job and all that. So there's really no money coming in. There's always that constant fear that one day the savings would just disappear, get used up. During this period of time, right, when I was taking this break, I realized that because I worry about my savings, depleting, I became very stingy with money, which is not something I expected myself to become. Because when I took a break, right, my plan was to actually enjoy myself, go out and eat, maybe even participate in more activities that I normally don't do, which will take up more money. But I find myself like, the first 1 month, like very stingy with my money, I felt a bit weird. And I started questioning myself also, like, is this the right way to like enjoy my break in that sense? Yeah, so that's one realization I had because of the worries that I was facing with money. Yeah, so it takes a while to adjust to this, to get used to this mindset and the worry, and to be confident to tell myself that actually I have saved enough, so don't worry too much. Yeah.
So I think for me, I sort of like, at the start when I first planned, I planned that I would have like, I roughly calculated how much I would spend. I would have like enough to last me for 1 year. And then there was like a budget of like how much I could spend per month. And then what I found was that even though I already had a pre-planned budget that like obviously I already calculated would last me through 12 months, I was still very like concerned about trying to spend below my given allowance per month. In the past, maybe I would just, hang out with friends, go to a cafe. Then now sometimes I'll be like, can we maybe hang out at a cheaper place, or maybe can we have a picnic instead? I think even getting to the point of asking, can we have a picnic instead, right, is a bit of a change in mindset. Because I think initially I started with just, can I use less money? After a while, my mindset changed a bit to be like, what can I do that still keeps the quality of life but doesn't really need money? But at the start, it was just like worry. And then I worried about worrying, it's just like a very bad cycle. Yeah. So I think finances took a while. Like I said, I think the part that you can probably try and get around eventually is to figure out what are maybe some of the things that can improve your finances or your quality of life without necessarily using money. Trying to find places that you can hang out without having to pay, or things that maybe you can learn over the internet, and knowing that you have already set up a budget. So even if you do want to take classes that cost some amount of money, that you have budgeted for it. The worrying about money is I think maybe we always think very one-dimensionally, it's just money. But I think the part that maybe is more important is really is this an experience that you want, and is it an experience that it's worth paying money for? And if it fits within the budget, why not,
Yeah, I guess what Kian mentioned, the last part about experiences, is balancing experience versus spending money, basically. So if you are being, you don't want to spend that money on a certain thing, you might also need to ask yourself, would you miss out on the experience? Would you regret missing out on that experience also? So I think that's one thing to take in mind when you are spending money during this break that you're having. So I think there's also other worries that will be on your mind, especially, I guess, related to work as well. If we take a break for too long, will we be able to find the next job? Are we still relevant in the workforce, right? And then also, I think for both of us, we are sort of thinking about changing industry in that sense, because we are a bit tired of architecture. So at least at this point, we are still thinking about what else we could do. So I think that's something that has been worrying us, right?
Yeah, I think maybe if you are sticking to the same industry, you might not be as concerned. You sort of still have to explain that gap in your employment history, I guess. But for people who are jumping industry, what we intend to do, and we don't even know what industry we're jumping to, it's a bit it's on top of having to explain that gap in your employment, you kind of have to justify why you're changing, and why on top of changing you also decided to do it with a break in the middle. If you're already worrying about money, this definitely doesn't help when you're worrying about this. Yeah. So how do you find it so far? Because you're still quite at the start of your planned gap, your break, right? How do you manage this?
I think management-wise, I just try to comfort myself that I am keeping an open mind, right? So any opportunity that comes my way, I'll just grab it in a sense. And so that's why I think that's how I stop myself from worrying too much. When the right opportunity comes, it will come. And then if I'm ready to take on it, then I'll just go for it. And since I am sort of ready to accept whatever opportunity that comes, right? So in that way, I will only so-called worry about it when the time comes. Yeah. Don't worry about it now because it's not happening yet. Yeah, so when it's happening already next time, then worry about it. So I guess that's one way to cope with it. Yeah. Okay, the next emotion that you may feel is that you may feel more exhausted. So I think this emotion applies to me a bit more. And this actually applies to me at the beginning of my resignation, when I started telling everybody that, I'm quitting my job, I am taking a break and things like this. So the exhaustion comes from actually having to explain to people why I'm quitting, and having to explain myself. Yeah, which I feel a bit weird because it's hello, it's my life, right? Why must I explain my decisions? But I guess in a way it shows that people are concerned about me, and so if people question you, they're concerned about you, which is not a bad thing. But it gets exhausting when people start to get nosy and start to give you advice. They started telling you, oh, you should do this, you shouldn't quit, you're like, wow, doing so well in your work. Why are you doing this? Wasted. Yeah, this is something that they keep saying. And then having to deal with all these people who don't support you in your resignation, right? It can be quite exhausting and overwhelming to deal with. So that was what I had to face at the beginning of my resignation. But I guess in a way, I just have to comfort myself that, yeah, it shows that people care about you. And you just need to know what do you want ultimately. I think just listen to your heart. I guess that's the most important thing, because you know what you want the most and you know what's best for you as well. So while everyone can disagree with you, everyone can give you whatever advice they want, but as long as you know what you truly want and what's best for you, I think that's good enough. The next emotion that you may feel is grief or sadness. So I think Kian can talk a little bit more about this emotional struggle. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think for me, this realization came quite late into my break year. It was like around the 9th or 10th month. When I realized that after going through most of the ones that we had at the start, right, that actually one of the emotions that I didn't really expect, and I think like very few people talked about, is that actually there is a sense of grief or sadness that you're now living, or like you have now left this path that you thought would be your life behind. So like maybe all along you thought like this would be how your life would go. You have this particular career and then you would, go through these steps and then move on to something else. But the idea of saying goodbye to this idea of like how I thought my life would be, it's not as simple as just I quit and then like, it's a done deal. I think the part that I didn't really expect is that it will take me some time to really like sit down and begin to process that actually by quitting I have let go of this idea of like who I would be. And for me, that idea has been with me for a really long time, since I was like schooling. And then, there is a lot of like processing of that grief, which I'm still doing. So like it sort of made sense. It's like it's a part of my belief that I've held on for so long, that I would be this kind of person. And yeah, sitting with it and like acknowledging that even though that person is not who I want to be anymore, doesn't mean that it doesn't still hurt or feel sad to let it go. Yeah.
Okay, the next emotion that you may feel is that you may actually get jealous or envious of others. So Kian, you want to start with this one?
Okay, so I think for a lot of us, in this social media kind of like social media saturated kind of landscape, it's very common to feel like FOMO, to feel like I don't want to miss out on what other people are doing. We mentioned earlier as well, you tend to like worry about your finances, worry about your how you're doing on your break. You might feel, or like at least I did, right? Sometimes when I looked at like other people's social media, Instagram, things like that, I would be like, oh, they're going on holiday. Like I'm not really like I didn't save enough to be able to go on holiday, or like at least not for that long, that kind of stuff, right? And then I would feel a bit like envious of like other people having that ability to do it. You are also envious of some stuff, right?
Yeah, so for me in particular, I think I'm sort of envious because like for the two of us, we quit our jobs because we don't quite like our jobs, and we had sort of like no choice but to quit in that sense lah, because we wanted to like use the time to heal and to also rediscover ourselves. After we quit, we have to deal with a lot of problems, right? Like worry about this and that. So when I see colleagues or friends who are totally okay with their work, and some are even like happy with whatever they are working as, and they don't need to go through what we are going through, like quitting, taking a break and worrying. So in a way, it's a kind of envious of them lah. Like, why can't I enjoy my work as much as they do? Like why do I need to go through this but they don't have to? So there's a bit of that imbalanced feeling, and like that unfair feeling in that sense. Like, why is this happening to us? Yeah. Okay, the last emotion that you may feel is that you may actually feel guilty about quitting your job and taking a break. Yeah, this emotion might feel a bit strange, right? Like why feel guilty? But I guess in a way, I guess it's the guilt of having the privilege to do this. Because I think, yeah, not everybody have this privilege like us to be able to just walk away from our job just because we feel that it's not for us, we don't like it, and we have the finances and the time also to actually have this break that we can discover ourselves. Because we understand that there's many people out there who maybe have family or other kinds of commitment that can't do what we're doing. So I guess having this privilege does give us that sense of like guilty feeling, like we are given all this good job, like a very good job to do, and our job is actually paying quite decent salary, and to walk away from all this does make us have that guilty feeling lah. Like, should we be more appreciative of what we have, and should we maybe not walk away from it because other people couldn't?
Of course, it doesn't mean that people who have all these other financial obligations cannot quit at all. It just means that there's a lot more planning and a lot more savings that needs to be done, and maybe like a lot more people that you have to communicate it to. But it does mean that it's like much easier for us to kind of do this a bit more on our own whim, and to be like, I can afford to do this financially, and also maybe I know risk-wise I can still probably find another job even if it doesn't pay as well. That kind of like privilege. It's a bit weird because then like when you feel this guilt, it kind of traps you from doing things. Like you kind of feel like also a bit like maybe paralyzed in the sense of like, not everybody gets to enjoy this, and like, am I not doing enough to enjoy this privilege? Like, first of all, am I very ungrateful for like quitting my job, giving up opportunities that other people would want? And then like now that I've quit, am I like not making full use of my time? Am I like, not exploring enough of like my life and like my next career path, where I'm going next? And I think like a bit of it comes back down to, again, the productivity mindset of like, you have to do things, you have to like accomplish a certain amount of things by a certain time, and then like, you have to always have something to show to other people. And like that guilt kind of comes from that same mindset. Yeah, and I think it's very common because a lot of us have this kind of like upbringing, but it's also like sometimes like the best way I found is like to acknowledge that I am privileged and take hold of this privilege and try and do as much as I can with it, and like see how that goes. So that has been kind of like how I've been trying to deal with it.
Okay, so these emotional struggles that we faced, I think it can be quite personal. This is like more of like what we both faced. So what you might potentially face might be different as well, because it depends on your personal circumstances, your personality also, and also what your expectations for yourself are. Like for the both of us, I think we have very similar personalities in that sense that we are always the kind that plan ahead. We always like to, know sort of like the end goal in that sense. So when we don't know all these things, we start to worry and we struggle.
I think probably quite a relatable feeling is that like a lot of us are expected to put our jobs as like one of the most important, if not the most important, or sometimes the only thing, the only important thing in your life, right? And I think part of going on this journey of like taking a break, quitting your job, is really to come to realize for yourself that like maybe a job is just like another part of your life. There are many, many pillars that can support this thing that you call your life, and a job is just one. And if you put everything solely on one pillar of the job, right? If you put everything solely on this like pillar called job, and let's say it fails you don't have anything else to turn to. So things like family and friends, your health, all these things are important. Of course, it depends on your own value judgment of like what you find more important or less important. But I think like having the space to be able to sit back and like sort of reject the capitalist society's view of like your job is the most important thing is very important. And like it will definitely also help to like lessen some of the struggles that you might face when you suddenly are on a break. You might be also asking, like, if we have so many emotional struggles, like, should I really quit my job? What do you say?
Yeah, so you might be questioning that, right? Like, so since it's so scary, should I quit and all this? So not to worry. If you're new to my channel, I actually have quite a few videos that I've done previously that shared about my resignation journey, like how I quit, why I quit, and I even listed down the 10 reasons why you should be quitting. So do check that video out. So all these videos will be linked down in the description box below. So do check them out, and perhaps after looking through all the videos, it can give you a much clearer perspective, and it can help you to also make a better decision for yourself. Because I think most importantly, only you know what's best for you, and only you can make that decision for yourself. So if you have made that decision to quit, know that actually it can be a good thing, because after all, there must be a reason why you plan to quit in the first place, right? Like for myself, is the dreadful feeling that I have every morning when I go to work. That dreadful feeling is completely gone right now. So every day I wake up, feeling very fresh and actually looking forward to my day every single day. So that's something that is very happy about. And the next thing is no more Monday blues, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think the whole, for me, one thing that I really enjoyed was like not having to work to a schedule. I can just wake up when I want to and sleep when I want to, and like not having to worry about, because basically I set my own schedule, right? Nobody's like making me do my hobbies, nobody's like making me work. So I think that is like the liberating part of actually quitting. Like there are definitely upsides. Don't feel like there isn't. We're just, discussing the parts that are maybe a bit more difficult, but there's definitely a lot of upsides to it as well. I think, it's kind of just life. There's like positives, there's negatives. We just want to give you a more realistic picture of like what quitting is really like. It's not like completely rosy, it's not completely negative as well. Yeah, and I think like definitely depending on like why you quit, like for example, if you are like really overworked, or like you really know it's not the good job, it's not a good place for you to be in, like you might feel even better about quitting.
I guess in a way, don't be too frightened by our video. Yeah, because we just want to put this out there so that in case any of you felt the same way, or you feel alone, then at least we are here to share that with you. And also in a way to sort of set that expectation for those of you who are planning to quit as well, to let you know that actually it's not all rosy and rainbows and butterflies after you quit. Yeah.
I guess it's a bit more of like a realistic expectations to prepare you, or really to make you feel that you're not alone, and that, of course we only know our struggles, and if you have yours, feel free to share them in the comments below. I mean, this is not my channel, but Tracy did promise that she will check out the comments. And I think like if there are other people who do leave comments, like you might find that you have like similar struggles, or depending on your circumstances, you might find things that you have more in common about than perhaps with us, because we are in a very specific place and we have a very specific job previously. If you have any of these struggles, know that you're not alone. There are people like us who have gone through them as well, and like it's nothing to be like ashamed about, or like to feel that you're like you have nobody to speak to.
Alright, so we have come to the end of our video. So thank you so much, Kian, for joining us today. So if you like this type of video whereby, I just invite a friend over to chit chat, and this kind of sort of like podcast / interview style type of video, do give this video a thumbs up, and also leave a comment below if you want to see more of this. So I will try to incorporate more of this kind of chit chat videos in my subsequent releases. So the next video will be released about 1 week from now. So do subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!